Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. It's Fight Week. It's Fight Week for the reigning WBO Super Flyweight Champion of Japan, Mizuki Hiruta, who will be boxing on UFC Fight Pass as part of a Hollywood Fight Nights 360 Promotions show against Mexico's own Naomi Cardenas, who's coming off that big win over a then unbeaten Bree Howling. I knew she was going to be a handful for Bree. Is she also going to be a handful for Mizuki, who sports an unblemished record of 8 wins with no losses, no draws, 2 knockouts, to Naomi Cardenas, who is also unbeaten, sporting a professional record of 9 wins with no losses and no draws, 2 knockouts. A similar number of fights, similar level of experience. What can we expect? Mizuki is a bit taller and a bit longer than Naomi, fighting out of the southpaw stance, whereas Naomi, she's an orthodox fighter, a short and stout orthodox fighter, a pressure fighter. So if you haven't already seen Naomi Cardenas in action, think Isaac Cruz in the men's lightweight division, think Mayeli Flores in the women's super bantamweight division. Naomi Cardenas is going to barrel forward, throwing punches in bunches, crashing the pocket, and try to fight all 2 minutes of a round. This will be Naomi's second fight of this year and her shot at the big time, because this is for Mizuki's WBO Super Flyweight title. Mizuki Hiruta is all that stands between Naomi Cardenas and world title honors. She beat an unbeaten fighter in her last fight. Is she about to beat an unbeaten champion? An unbeaten champion in Mizuki Hiruta, who's been busy. She fought 2 times this year, 2 times already. Once in January, again in May. Now she's fighting again this month. So she at least has momentum going in and a strong corner in Manny Robles, who she has been training under for a few fights now. And the difference, it's noticeable. She has greatly improved since enlisting the aid of Manny Robles, but will it make enough of a difference to hold back Naomi Cardenas? You see what Naomi's all about in the video shown here. She's a come-forward fighter, she's a slugger, she does her best work deep in the pocket, letting go of hooks, uppercuts, body shots. She is that kind of fighter. Whereas Mizuki is a bit more measured, a bit more reserved, not necessarily as persistent, but still explosive, which she has to do. A bit of what you just saw there. Catch Naomi coming in with a counter, then take a half step back to stay out of range of her punches. Step out of the pocket, because so long as you're there, Naomi's going to keep swinging. There are 2 ways to fight this fight for Mizuki Hiruta. She can either sell out, fight fire with fire, and trade punches with Naomi in the pocket, or she can move and punch, box. Which is going to take a bit more control, bit more poise and temperance from Mizuki Hiruta to get off 1 or 2 punches, then move out of the way. Don't give her what she wants. It takes discipline to do that. It takes control. It's not easy when the fighter's always barreling forward, always coming after you. They're persistent round after round. It's difficult to stick to a game plan because they're trying to draw you out. I think that, punch for punch, Mizuki Hiruta has heavier hands than Naomi Cardenas, but what makes Naomi dangerous is her work rate. That even if she doesn't punch quite as hard as Mizuki Hiruta, she throws so many punches, she can do a lot of damage. Take a lot of damage too. I will say that Naomi Cardenas, for all of her virtues, she doesn't have good defense. She can take a shot. She's got a chin. It's only because she compromises defense for offense as she is barreling forward. So I want to say that defensively, I think Mizuki might be a little bit better, shows more adaptability, malleability. She's not just an action fighter like Naomi, but Naomi is persistent, and that makes her dangerous. It's a tough fight to wedge. It's not a foregone conclusion that Mizuki is going to keep her belt on Friday. I'm taking it on faith that she's improved just enough to win a points decision. I don't think she stops Naomi Cardenas. Naomi is a tough customer, a tough nut to crack. But I think on the move, on her toes, working off the counter, Mizuki can win the fight. She can win a points decision. So I'm going with Mizuki to retain the WBO title this Friday in what I think is a 50-50 fight. I really wouldn't be surprised if Naomi wins, but I'm going with Mizuki. I'm taking it on faith that she can handle this assignment. Men's junior middleweight news per Boxing Insider Rick Glacier. Keith Thurman has no heart left for boxing, as he's now turned down Virgil Ortiz. He's just attempting to look for a soft spot to collect his last boxing paycheck. He's not a real fighter anymore, just a guy that wants to cash in on his name of 10 years ago, and that was then. This is now. Thurman hasn't been in a meaningful fight since losing to Manny Pacquiao in 2019, and has only fought 2 times in the last 6 years. Thurman will be 37 in November. Keith Thurman is the undeniable poster boy for what's wrong with boxing in America in this era, and no one can disagree with that. So when Rick Merrigan said that they're about to fight a bigger name than Boots, a bigger name than Boots ever will be, is that who he was talking about? He was talking about Keith Thurman.
Jesus Christ.
Listen, I know they have their differences, and there is blame to be assigned to Team Ennis, who has already turned down the Virgil Ortiz fight, but I'm just saying, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Don't hype up Virgil's next fight as being a bigger and better name than Boots ever will be, when who you're talking about is Keithy. You're talking about Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman has not been relevant to the sport of boxing in ages, in years.
Years.
If he would have gone through with the Virgil Ortiz fight, Virgil would have mowed him down. I don't have a doubt in my mind that Virgil would have worked that body, and he would have stopped Keith. And for Keith to have entered talks for an Ortiz fight, to have even considered fighting somebody like Virgil at this stage in his career, the situation would have grown desperate.
Not that desperate. According to Ricky, he walked away.
But here's the thing. Not but 1 or 2 days ago, I came across a rumor that Keith Thurman is entering into a Sebastian Fundora fight. A Sebastian Fundora pay-per-view set to go down in late October. So maybe the reason that he's walked away from Virgil is so he can walk into a Sebastian Fundora fight that I don't think is any better. I don't think it's any safer for Keith. At his age, and at this stage, given where he's campaigning, everything is a risk. Anything from a Virgil Ortiz to a Sebastian Fundora to a Jesus Ramos, really, any solid junior middleweight is a risk for Keith.
But that's what I heard. That's what I was told. That Keith Thurman is going to be fighting Sebastian Fundora in late October.
Virgil Ortiz and Sebastian Fundora are very different fighters in terms of build, their physical dimensions, and their methodology. What makes a Sebastian Fundora fight just as risky as an Ortiz fight, in spite of their differences, is that Keith Thurman, at his very best, in his prime, was a mover and a counterpuncher.
He had good legs.
He could move, and he had good enough power that if he catches you clean with a hard counter, he can do some damage. That was Keith at his best, and that was years ago. The reason even that wouldn't help him against Sebastian is Sebastian is so tall, so long. He's got so much reach that he doesn't need to be close to Keith to touch him with punches. So Keith, circling away and staying on the outside, trying to set a trap, it wouldn't work. Sebastian's too tall.
Least of all now that Sebastian is electing to use that height more, use that length, use the jab.
Oh yeah, there was a time that Sebastian Fundora would readily give up his height and length to trade punches on the inside. He doesn't do that anymore. He stays behind the jab, stepping into it or staying behind it, but he uses it to maintain distance, which would make it that much harder for Keith to get anything off.
If Keith fights the way that he normally fights, on his toes, circling away, trying to set a trap with Sebastian, that wouldn't work. With Sebastian, Keith would have to try to come forward on him,
Crash the pocket, crowd him, and get off punches mid-range to inside where Sebastian is vulnerable. But that's not easy either. You're gonna come under heavy fire, being the shorter fighter trying to close the gap. Keith Thurman has never been knocked out. He's never been stopped. But a part of the reason, I think, is because the man barely fights. 2 fights in the last 6 years. He took a 2-year hiatus after beating Danny Garcia. Took 2 more years off after losing to Manny Pacquiao, then 2 more years off after the Mario Barrios fight. So I mean, yeah, Keithy's never been knocked out before, but when you're on a schedule like that, how's it supposed to happen? When you didn't fight Errol in his prime, or Terrence when he was still there. Of course you haven't been knocked out. You haven't even been fighting. How the hell's it supposed to happen? If he goes up to junior middle and he fights Sebastian Fundora, there's a strong possibility he gets stopped. Still struggle with the idea that Keith Thurman would willingly take a fight like this on, but at the same time, after all these years of not fighting, the well must be running dry for Keith. He must be strapped for cash. He was willing to go to Australia.
Well, yeah, but that was for Brock Jarvis.
Still more than you'd expect from Keith. Under normal circumstances, Keith Thurman would be demanding that Brock Jarvis come to him, come to America. He instead ended up going to Australia because he's that strapped for cash.
He needs money.
So when you tell me that he was just in negotiations for a Virgil Ortiz fight, and now he may be fighting Sebastian Fundora, what that tells me is this guy's desperate. He's strapped for cash, and there are no easy outs at 154, not for him.
But Sebastian, he's gonna get his clock cleaned.
What else is curious is that Sebastian Fundora is the reigning WBC champion, and Virgil Ortiz is the interim champion. So why isn't more being done to put those 2 guys in the ring with each other? Does Virgil not want his title shot? Because he's been interim champion for about a year. So you just explored a Keith Thurman fight, but not a Sebastian Fundora fight.
He's been interim champion since August of last year after the Boachuk fight, and not a lot is being done to put Virgil in a title fight, to get him a world title. I don't think that's a good look.
He never got his crack at the apple at 147. But now it would seem he's not getting it at 154 because they're not trying hard enough. Sebastian is right there. Pressure to WBC to order the fight.
Be a crying shame if Virgil's campaign at 154 comes and goes, and he never gets the fight for a full title.
Golden Boy Promotions and Rick Mirrigan need to do a lot more to get him one.
In men's heavyweight news, ongoing situation involving Michael Hunter and Don King. It was recently stated that Michael Hunter would be facing Jarrell Miller on the undercard of Canelo vs. Crawford. Then more news broke that Don King sent Turki Al-Sheikh and Sella a cease and desist letter.
Don is supposed to be promoting Michael. I think that's what the nature of the problem is. To that, Michael Hunter posted this image to his social media. Michael Hunter's contractual status as it pertains to Don King Productions Incorporated. Michael Hunter, boxer, hereinafter, hereby provides formal notice of the dissolution of any and all existing agreements or contracts with Don King Productions, Inc., hereinafter, for material breach, whether implied or expressed. As of the April 27th, 2025, Michael Hunter via DKP's assent by non-response to certain legal correspondence was no longer legally bound by any contractual terms that may have existed between the parties. On May 14th of this year, the World Boxing Association World Championship Committee formally noticed the Pulev vs. Hunter bout for May 27th of this year for purse bid. DKP was awarded the $1 million purse bid. Michael Hunter did submit a bout agreement set forth by Don King Promotions, however, also redlined or struck certain terms Michael Hunter considered to be draconian and unacceptable. Don King Promotions accepted that particular bout agreement.
Notice of no contract.
This notice is to affirm that no binding agreement, contract, or obligation currently exists between Michael Hunter and any other party regarding the subject matter in question. This notice serves to clarify that any perceived or alleged agreement is null, void, and without legal effect.
Declaration of free agency.
Michael Hunter does hereby declare and affirm that Michael Hunter acts in full autonomy, not under contract, obligation, or control by any third party, agency, or entity. Michael Hunter does reserve all legal rights to engage or disengage in contractual relationships as Michael Hunter may choose, and this declaration is made under the laws of the state of Nevada.
Notice of warranty of free agency.
Michael Hunter affirms and warrants that they are free agents and not bound by any prior or existing contract, obligation, or agency relationship that would prevent them from entering into new agreements or obligations. This declaration is made under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Nevada.
Notice of indemnity.
Michael Hunter hereby indemnifies any and all boxing promoters, current and future, against subjected legal challenges at subsequent costs brought about by Don King Promotions and Don King Promotions affiliates.
It's amazing to see that boxers are still getting into contractual disputes with Don King of all people. Why would anybody in 2025 have anything to do with Don King, given his reputation on all the horror stories associated with him? The situation would have grown desperate for Michael to have entered into any kind of partnership with Don that he is now disavowing.
I remember a few years ago, he was on Matchroom, and Matchroom wanted him to fight Filip Hrgovic, I think it was, at which point Michael decided to leave Matchroom and go to Triller. You remember Triller.
They're the ones who put up the supposed $6 million for Lopez versus Cambosos. You remember them. They were doing fights.
Michael migrated over there from Matchroom in search of greener pastures and looking to stay on Easy Street. I believe that he fought there once or twice, and then he was just in limbo after that, fighting on the Chicken Gizzard circuit. You didn't see him much anymore.
And I guess that at some point between now and then, he must have started something with Don King.
Because we wouldn't be here now if he didn't, and Don wouldn't be in the picture. He wouldn't be in the picture at all. A promoter like Don, at this point, survives by latching on to fighters,
siphoning money from them.
Don King himself has not brokered a deal with a broadcaster that gives him an annual budget to do shows throughout the calendar year, so he himself cannot provide that service to a fighter, and what he's really doing is acting as a booking agent, renting out fighters and siphoning money off their purses on the premise that he's their promoter.
Even though he doesn't actually do much promoting these days, he only does the odd show every so often that isn't worth a damn.
So that when a Noel Gavor boxes on a Turkey LL Chic show, Don gets a piece of that action, so that when a Michael Hunter tries to do the same thing, Don wants a piece of that action.
And if he can't get it, he'll send out a cease and desist letter, like he just did.
Careful that this situation doesn't become too much of a kerfuddle for the event coordinators, that they decide to go with somebody else. They decide to find Jarrell Miller a different opponent.
Michael says that he's a free agent.
That he has full autonomy, and I actually like the fight between him and Jarrell Miller. I think that's a good fight, but I don't really know if Michael's free to have it.
He would have been better off going to Pro Box than Don King.
If in between the time that he left Matchroom and Triller fell apart, he needed somewhere to go, he would have been better off going to Pro Box and Gary Jonas than doing anything with Don King. So here we are.
We'll see how it shakes out.